Hi, how you doing? I'm standing somewhere cute for once, trying to put some effort in. Today I want to talk about sketchbooks, and namely filling them, finishing them, completing them, and moving on to the next sketchbook. I have experience in this because I've had a sketchbook since I was like 13, and I only just finished one last year? Yeah, last year. Shit, really? Yeah, last year. And ever since I finished my first one, I really wanted to look at and analyse what I changed about the way I used my sketchbook that helped me to finish it and get more use out of it. I feel like my art has grown so much since adapting this approach to my sketchbook. It's really encouraged me to explore the possibilities and get a lot more out of my art and out of myself and out of my brain onto a page. And I've drawn more in the last 2 years than I probably have in the last 20. So I'm just going to share some tips, some tricks, some guidance with you. We're just going to talk about sketchbooks. So I've finished 4. These are my 4 filled sketchbooks. I have sketchbook tours on 3 of them, and I need to film this one. I'll link them below if you are interested in like more in-depth little tours of my sketchbooks. And my current sketchbook is this, and I'm about halfway through. And it's what I'll be using as like the demonstration in this video, but I've also like flipped through my old ones just to give you a bit of an idea of what I used to do and the process and how it evolved and all that sort of stuff. Let's go into it. I've tried to organize these into like a neat 5-dot bullet point list thing so that there is structure. And the first thing I want to talk about is letting go of perfection, because for me that was the biggest issue. I, no joke, had about 20 sketchbooks in like a big box, and none of them were finished, and I labored over each and every sketch in each and every page, and they're just sketches. Like, I would spend hours on one sketch, and it's not even a finished piece. It's never gonna be a finished piece. It's a sketch. I mean, it's really no wonder I never finished a sketchbook if I like was so precious about every single thing I did in it, and I was so, you know, scared of failing or messing up or making mistakes or whatever, that every time I did, I was like, throw the whole sketchbook away, we're done. And I literally had like a big box full of sketchbooks. It was so heavy I couldn't even lift it. And I went through them and I was like, there's nothing even of value here. What am I keeping these for? Why did I labor so much? You know, that I didn't learn anything from being so precious with these. And so I threw them away. I threw away a good 10 years of sketchbook history because none of them were finished. None of them had anything of value. There were like a couple pages about comics, and I did I rip them out? No, I took a photo of them or something. They're somewhere. I saved them, but I just threw them away and I just started again because I realized that I really needed to let go of this image I had in my head of like the perfect sketchbook that like perfectly represents how good I am at art and how fantastic I am, and that's not what they're for. That's not the point of them. They're like, it's like a workbook. It's a tool to explore things and make mistakes and fuck up and do all that before you get to the finished piece. And I didn't really get that. I didn't really realize and understand that. And that's just where I was in my journey, which is okay. It's fine. I learned from it and I'm moving on. And now I can pass that on to you. Let go of perfection. One of the ways that I found really helped with this was getting a small sketchbook that was cheap. So the first sketchbook I finished was this one, and this would cost me like $3 from Officeworks, and the paper's fine, it's normal, it can handle stuff, it's fine, it's really cheap. I didn't have to be precious with it, and that really helped. So I guess that's my unofficial like part 2 of tip 1. Don't get something that you're scared of ruining, because something that I've discovered with using this Mossere sketchbook, and I'll talk about this more when I eventually finish it and do a sketchbook tour, is that it's really nice and I'm a bit scared of it. So I've been struggling to like mess it up and make ugly things in it. It's a process. So something that's going to help you no matter what stage you're at in your art process, and you've probably heard it a million times before, studies. I know I don't do enough of them. I'm trying to do more. I've actually just started like a dedicated studies sketchbook because these actually take up so much room in a sketchbook. You can fill pages and pages and pages with these. And I didn't want to waste my nice moire paper on figure drawings. So yeah, they do take up such a large amount of room. Even if you do like a 20-minute Croquis Cafe video, that filled up like 4 pages in my moire sketchbook. So if you're just looking to like finish a sketchbook for the first time, I highly recommend Studies. It can be figure drawing, it can be landscapes, like anything. Like you can just look at something and draw it and study it. And that's incredibly powerful, and it'll increase your confidence with art and your speed as well. So there's a couple different websites I use and have used for years. Sketch Daily, Line of Action, and Quick Pose, I think. And they all kind of have the same format, just different photos. They allow you to like set time limits, so you can create your own like life drawing class customized to you. You can skip to whatever photo you like. You can select whether you want to draw clothes or landscapes or kids or animals, or, you know, naked dudes and naked women, or clothed dudes, and, you know, groups of people and one person. You have so many options to customize. I think that's really great. Croquis Cafe is another really great resource. It's on YouTube, it's videos, and it's much more structured. And I really like that for kind of warm-ups, because I don't have to think. I can just like click on a video and I don't have a choice. I just have to draw what there is. So that really helps me, because when I have to think too much, if I'm feeling like nervous about what I'm drawing, if I have to decide then what to draw, really freaks me out and it stops me from drawing. So something that really helps to get into the flow and not be so scared of making art or nervous about making mistakes or screwing up or whatever. Figures is a really good way to get over that kind of paralyzed feeling that you can get when you're scared of like a blank page. Speaking of blank pages, leads me to tip number 3, which is fill the whole page. This was something I really didn't do when I used to use my sketchbooks. I used to draw like 2 drawings, they would be this small on a page this big, and then I would move on to the next page. And I'm not sure why I did that, because you can just jam whatever in there. Like, it's a sketchbook, you do whatever. It doesn't have to look nice, it's just for you, right? For me, learning to fill the page really helped me let go of that stiffness that I had that was holding me back from finishing sketchbooks. Filling it with doodles, filling it with shapes, filling it with blocks of colour, filling it with different materials, filling it with pattern, filling it with quotes and writing and experiments. And if I needed to test out a pen, I would just like, instead of starting a new page, I would just like go to a random page in my sketchbook that had a bit of a gap and draw that in, and you get more miles out of your sketchbook because of that. And I find that it also really helps me finish a sketchbook because the pages look more complete and more interesting, even if they don't go together, even if they're not the same theme, even if they, you know, aren't perfect. Having a full page that's full of like work and inspiration and color and lines and experiments really helps to inspire me to turn the page and start a new one. And I think that that's really valuable. So I would highly recommend, if you aren't currently filling your pages, try it out and see if it helps inspire you to move forward. And I guess that leads us to tip number 4, which is to try new materials. You don't have to go out and buy like fancy watercolor set or fancy anything. It can literally just be you're walking through a craft store and you see a colored pencil and in a color that you like and you grab it for 99 cents. Like, explore new mediums, push them, see what they can do, see what they look like with other things, see what they look like. You know, I have 2 different colors of the same kind of pencil. What do they look like together? Can I blend them? Can I blend them with a 3rd color kind of pencil? What do they look like if I put a marker over the top? What do they look like if I put a highlighter over the top? What do they look like if I'm not going to put washi tape over the top, but literally just grab things around you and put them together and see what happens. Swatches and experiments and layers are a great way to get your brain moving so that you can kind of think artistically, if that makes sense. It wakes your creative brain up. At least it does for me anyway, because I'm like, oh, that color looks nice. Oh, that color looks nice. Oh, that looks nice. That reminds me of a field or a robot or a ballerina or a scarf. But I often find that starting with that really jogs my brain and really gets my brain going. It's one of the things I like to do first thing in the morning, is just like scribble some colors down on a page, and then I'm like, ooh, I could do something with this. So yeah, I would highly recommend trying new materials. It keeps things fresh, it keeps things exciting. If you only use watercolor, go get a couple markers, just some cheap ones, see what you can do with them. If you only use markers, go get some colored pencils or some graphite and see what you can do with that. You know, the possibilities are endless. You can literally use anything to make a mark. The world is your creative oyster. Like, there are no rules about what you have to use and what you can't use and what you need to stick to and all this sort of stuff. You can just, if you're interested in something, you can just try it, and that interest will keep you practicing, and that practice will help you fill up a sketchbook. Okay, so the lucky last tip is kind of tricky for me to explain, but it's basically to interrogate your ideas. So something I used to do in my old sketchbooks that I never finished, I just draw like cute girls, a plant, a figure, a cartoon, and I would only draw them once, and I'd draw them once and then move on. And even if they sucked, which they did because I was learning, I wouldn't try them again. I would just be like, oh, that's a failure, I can never do it again, whatever, move on. Which is one way to look at it. Or you could say, okay, well, there's this idea that I have, how can I draw it out, that looks okay, but it doesn't really make sense. Ask yourself questions about it. How would it look if you did this? How would it look if you did that? To kind of get an example of this to show you guys, I went back to that drawing of a giant that I did to fill up the page in that example. I was like, okay, this is kind of cool, like, giants are fun. Let's draw him again. Is he friendly? Is he mean? Is he scared of humans? Does he like humans? Does he know humans exist? And I was like, well, they'd have to know humans exist because he's so big. He's the size of a skyscraper. Where's he gonna hide? And then I was like, the ocean. So then it kind of led me to drawing these giant mermaids, and I've never drawn a mermaid before, so I was like out of my element. And I was like, well, I don't want him to look like a human with a tail, but how do I make him look not like a fish? And I was just asking myself questions about that, and none of this is going to go anywhere probably, but it's a good exercise to have because now I've thought about that, and that could inform later work. And that's the whole point of a sketchbook, to keep questioning your ideas and exploring things, because that exploration leads you to one tiny little speck that's going to blow up and become an idea that becomes a final piece. And that's the point of them. They're not there to be displays of your artwork. They're not there to be perfect representations of who you are as an artist, although they do accidentally become that. If you actually use your sketchbook, if you work in it, if you interrogate your ideas and try new materials and practice your anatomy and do figure sketches and, you know, landscape studies and color studies, and if you cram your pages with stuff and just jam pack as much as you can in and let go of the idea that it needs to be this perfect thing, then you'll really get so much more use out of it, and it'll move your brain more, it'll work your brain more, and it'll light it up and make you keep going. And when I went back and looked at what I used to do and look at what I do now, those are the things that I isolated in my sketchbook practice. I have heaps to learn. I'm still learning. I learn every goddamn day, and it's the best thing about art. Like, I used to hate that my art was never going to be perfect, and it never will be. Perfection is not the goal, and it used to hold me back and stop me from doing a lot of things. And learning these lessons along the way has really helped me grow my practice, and my practice did not grow for 10 years. It stayed exactly the same until I started doing these things. So I would highly recommend, if you're not currently doing them, to give them a try, give them a go, see what they can do for you. And maybe you'll learn other tips for yourself along the way. You'll learn lessons in your own practice that I have no idea about, and we can share them with each other. So those are kind of my tips for filling a sketchbook. It's just things that I've learned along the way. Like I said, I've got a lot more to learn. It's a process. It's a really fun process. And the more you enjoy the process, the better your final pieces are going to end up, I think, because you're willing to explore the process more and interrogate it more and try new stuff and be a bit fearless and maybe end up with something you've never ended up with before, which is really exciting. So guys, that's pretty much it from me today. I just wanted to sit down and have like a proper chat with you. I really hope you found this helpful. If you did, like, give me one of them thumbs up. That would really help me out. And yeah, I'm curious, how many sketchbooks have you finished? And if you've never finished a sketchbook, how many sketchbooks do you have that are unfinished? let's air our dirty laundry, because I no joke probably had about 20 and I put them all in the bin because I'm sick of that negativity. Thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you real soon.